Hello, everyone, and welcome. I am extremely excited for today's conversation, and I'm glad that you all have joined us. My name is Nathan Ahlgrim, and I am the Senior Academic Community Manager at the Good Food Institute, and I will pass it over to our featured speakers shortly. But for those of you who may be new to the GFI community, I wanted to share a quick introduction about who we are and what we do. Especially if this is your first time with us, I would encourage you to spend some time exploring our treasure trove of open access resources on our website, gfi.org, which includes everything from technical reports to a free course on the protein transition. Now, the Good Food Institute is a 501c3 nonprofit dedicated to developing the roadmap for a sustainable, secure, and just protein supply. We are funded entirely by philanthropy, and our generous donors allow us to work towards this vision in three areas of focus. I am part of the science and technology team, where we work to advance foundational, open access research in alternative proteins and creating a thriving research and training ecosystem around these game-changing fields. Our corporate engagement team partners with companies and investors across the globe to drive investment, accelerate innovation, and scale the supply chain. And our policy team advocates for fair policy and public research funding for alternative proteins. I am coming from the US team. I'm actually based on the East Coast in North Carolina, but I have the privilege of working with a global team of experts with our affiliates in 6 other regions across the globe that you see here. And we do this because we recognize the need for regional and local expertise to best meet the needs of specific political climates, hubs of technical expertise, and natural resource production, and of course, cultural foodways. Now, the goal of this seminar series is to share roadmaps for success in alternative protein training and education. Being an emerging field, there is still a relative lack of opportunities for people who want to build their careers in the field. As with the general trends in training and education, we know that empowering a robust workforce will require a multi-pronged approach. So throughout this seminar series, we will be highlighting a broad array of real-world programs, and our goal is for this knowledge sharing to catalyze new program development and eventually to kickstart the careers of future alternative protein luminaries. So here is what we will be going through for the remainder of the webinar. I will start with a quick highlight of some of the resources that may be most relevant to you if you are on this call, and then I will have the privilege of passing it on to our speakers so they can share their side of the incredible collaboration we will be talking through. We will follow that with a deeper discussion that can be informed by your questions. So please submit them using the Q&A feature as soon as your questions come up. Just as a note, we will not be able to monitor the chat for your questions, but that is a great place to introduce yourselves and connect with other alt protein champions. For those of you who are watching this recording, so if you are not attending live, I have something really exciting that we are trying out this time around. Both of our speakers have graciously agreed to answer any questions or respond to any ideas that come in for the rest of the week. So we will share a form link in our follow-up email and post it to the description of the YouTube video until October 10th. So please send one in if you were not able to share a question live, but still want to get your voice heard. Before I move on, I would really like to get a feel for the audience we have on this call so we can best meet the needs of what you might be exploring. We will have a quick poll just to see what type of environment you are coming from. Students, teachers, industry professionals, or someone else. I'm just going to pause here while everyone can submit their answers. Seems like we've got almost an equal amount of faculty and students with some industry professionals and people from elsewhere in the ecosystem as well, which is really great to see. As I will speak more about later, I come from managing the Alt Protein Project, which is our global community of university student leaders. So I am very motivated to empower students to make this direct development and evolution, which of course we can only do with the benefit of their faculty mentors as well. Now, I did talk about some of the possibly most relevant resources that we have available on our website. So the first I had already mentioned, that is our free online course, The Protein Transition. We have already had more than 15,000 enrollees, and this covers all the basics of alternative protein science. So if you are just getting started in the field, this is really a fantastic crash course to get you all you need to know to really be fluent in this environment. Secondly is our career pathways tool. This is relatively new to our resource set. I am still digging through it and it's incredibly valuable. Our colleagues in our Asia Pacific team designed this, and it's a platform that allows students to easily navigate through their career options. It's incredibly fun and user friendly. You can investigate a bunch of different techniques, skills, and career paths. So strongly recommended if you're in a place where you're trying to figure out where you might best fit in the alternative protein ecosystem. And finally, our teaching library is a treasure trove of open access materials, really from across education. So whether you're looking for sample syllabi or slide decks, lectures, a couple of laboratory protocols as well, we have assembled this really to help support educators and interested students and allow them to build their own courses and programs without having to do everything from scratch. And in saying that, I would love to just put a call out. Anyone who is hearing this who has developed some materials for their own courses, please share them with us so that your work and your effort can be shared across the entire alternative protein community. Now, I will say that I know firsthand how overwhelming some of our resources are. Seeing something like our teaching library, where we have literally more than 100 resources, can make it hard to know what is most relevant to your goals. Which of our syllabi or slide decks have the information that is actually most relevant to what you are trying to build? Now, helping you figure that out is literally our job. So, my request to everyone on this call is that if you have any such goals, whether that be a course or advocating for an internship program, please connect with us. Even if you are not looking for guidance, we really just want to know what you are working on building. And with that, I will have very brief introductions for our two featured speakers today and pass it over to them. We will start with Dr. Yuki Hanyu, the founder and CEO of IntegriCulture Inc. He founded that company in 2015, back when the term cultivated meat was not even an agreed upon term across the industry. And his adoption so early and focus on the industry really is a testament to his foresight. And I see IntegriCulture's guiding mission of democratizing cellular agriculture as a testament to his role as a field catalyst. Since its founding, IntegriCulture has been recognized by many innovation awards, including the Technology Fast 50 2024 Japan list. IntegriCulture now offers a range of supplies and services to facilitate others' growth into the industry, which Yuki will share about more about that shortly. But what I am most excited about, honestly, is IntegriCulture's continued commitment to directly engage upcoming cellular agriculture professionals in universities and student initiatives around the world. Now, one such partnership is with Temasek Polytechnic, which is represented by Dr. James Lim here today. James is well known across many corners of the cell ag space, now serving in the future foods domain and the Center for Aquaculture and Veterinary Science. His background in environmental epigenetics informs his research on cell cultivated seafood and microalgae engineering. What I particularly appreciate about James as a former lecturer myself is his commitment to project based and experiential learning, offering his students the chance to tackle real world problems without established solutions, instead of simply walking his students through standard laboratory protocols that some of you may have experienced throughout your own education. We will learn about how he has included hands on experiences in cellular agriculture shortly. So I will start by passing it over to Yuki to share IntegriCulture's story, their academic engagement, and some future goals.
Yeah. Hello. Thank you for coming to this webinar. I'm Yuki Hanyu, the founder CEO of IntegriCulture Company, which has its origin actually. So this IntegriCulture Company actually came from the Shojin Meat project. It's a citizen science community that's in which like say people make cell cultured meat at home by like DIY biohack and such. So which that started in 2014, and since then, so IntegriCulture Company is a for-profit startup that's spinning off, and we also have a non-profit spinning off from that the same origin. Next slide, please. Yeah, so what we are doing here is basically we are building an ecosystem of like for-profit entity, non-profit entity, and a citizen science entity, which is like doesn't even have a legal entity, like doing its own part. And IntegriCulture Company here is basically providing the physical infrastructure for a cellular agriculture ecosystem to work. The reason and we're working in ecosystem rather than just single or startup entity is more on how IP and this whole industry can be can be implemented for the real world, which is on the next slide. Yeah, so basically, our goal is to make and to establish a situation where how to make cell cultured food product is open, while how to scale can be proprietary. And in that way, academia or citizen science, or maybe hobbyists and professionals like restaurant chefs can develop their own version of cell cultured food products. And if it's worth scaling, then they can come to the industry for like nationwide distribution and taking that to the business domain. And that way, we get to a state where the public can see how it's made, what it's made of, with the full trust in the technology and the product themselves, while um, sustaining itself. Yeah. Next slide, please. Yeah, so basically, IntegriCulture Company directly inherits that like spirit from the Shojin Meat project of the DIY biohack, everyone get on board spirit, and so the company has its mission of democratizing cellular agriculture, and democratization of cellular agriculture means. Small and big entities from different sectors getting access to the technology. So this figure sort of summarizes that. We have not only food companies, but we have other sectors like materials, cosmetics, or even entertainment entities. And we also have like small chefs and big companies using the cell agriculture technology in whatever they want. So, like for example, for the entertainment purpose, what I'm talking about is something like cell cultured meat with the marbling in the shape of Pikachu or things like that. Well, high added value possibly, not natural, but it's fun. So transparency and this kind of massive product diversity is, I believe, is an integral part of public acceptance of the technology. So the next slide, please. Yeah. Through the work of IntegriCulture company, we have some positive results actually coming up. One on the left-hand side, we have the big entities. On the right-hand side, we have small entities developing their own cell-cultured food products. Yeah. So that's on the industry side. But on the next page, yeah, what we actually provide are these are our actual things we provide. So we provide everything, food grade, everything from basal medium to equipment. Equipment like bioreactor, which tends to be expensive traditionally, but we've developed something like repurposed pressure cooker bioreactor and other ultra low capex solutions based on our original like a DIY biospirit. Yeah, next page, please. And that's how we also do like educational kit, and that is like just one way of packaging our product is like cellular agriculture starter kit, which basically includes all the things a student or educator need to actually do cell culture in classroom circumstances. Well, obviously, education and educating the next generation is an integral part of democratizing cellular agriculture. So, us getting engaged in this kind of starter kit perfectly aligns with the company mission as well as the broader cellular community started by the Shojin Meat project. And this has been actually picked as the prize for food for thought innovations, and it's a kind of a pitch competition. And the winner actually got hold of the starter kit, so that the winners can actually try on the cellular agriculture, maybe at home or maybe at schools. Um, Yeah, so this starter kit obviously has its roots in this kind of growing meat at home home effort in the early days. So on the in the middle lower half, we have a like high school student attempting on cell cultured meat experiment at home, and that has been televised nationwide in Japan back in 2017. So there we've developed various biohack techniques to make cell cultured food products DIY. Yeah, next slide. Yeah. And fast forward to very recent time, we've actually tested out our cellular agriculture starter kit in collaboration with Temasek Polytechnic to do a class by visiting their site. And we did a practical class based on industry relevant processes because this is what we use. This kind of like novel design bioreactor, and which is all made of like, food compatible materials, and um, students got a first-hand experience of what food-grade cell culture means, and also cellular agriculture industry process, which may not be exactly the same as traditional biopharma sort of cell culture standard laboratory procedures. Next slide, please. Um, through this effort, what we are hoping, and this is also what the GFI has been also been committed to, but academia and educational institutions defining the field of cellular agriculture and leading the whole field to the right direction. Which obviously has got multiple benefits like avoiding duplicative efforts and especially in the pre-competitive space like food safety. Now the next slide, please. Yeah, but at the same time, although it was the first attempt, that means we've also identified things that we can improve on. We are some potential improvements. From our experience by actually doing a class, we also thought maybe it was perhaps more effective to do that practical class in the actual no, actual production site so that we can show the direct relevance of this kind of starter kits, like small scale process to the actual industrial setup sitting right next. So thereby getting better drawing, letting students draw a connection between what they actually doing with what they actually see in large scale in front of them. And another thing we had was like another issue we had was the logistics of the starter kit because some of the components, especially the reagent, may require refrigeration, but at the same time we've also identified things that can go at room temperature. So we also found that like certain things can be better sourced locally, but we can work on that together if you're very interested in like building the future generation of cellular agriculture experts. And more on the organizational and administrative, more on the organizational side, maybe such kind of program going with a degree program may also be a good idea. Um, Basically, tying up this practical class with career development, which makes it like more obvious on the why students are doing this. So that was the sort of a quick description and introduction to how what we do and what we've done and what we learned from them. Yeah, thank you very much, and we got to talk about more in the following panel sessions.
Yes, thank you so much, Yuki. Definitely a whirlwind tour through almost the entire history of mainstream cellular agriculture production. So now I would love to talk about the other side of that partnership that you highlighted by passing it over to Dr. James Lim from Temasek Polytechnic to really talk about what that unique value add is of bringing such laboratory kits and having that partnership in the classroom material itself. So, James, take it away.
Okay, good day, everyone. It's really a joy to be here today with you guys. Really, thank you so much for taking your time to be here with us. I'm a lecturer and also actually an early career researcher from Temasek Poly, and really delighted that we're in the same room. There's like I can see from academia, industry, and perhaps also the students, okay, who are really passionate on the cellular agriculture education and how these two can be like deeply intertwined. So at Temasek Poly's, or rather TP, Future Foods domain, we believe that the future of food is not just about technology or science, but at its heart, we are really people nurturing, looking at people nurturing talent, building communities, creating that meaningful collaborations. Okay, that's always at the back of our mind to shape the world that we share. And of course, this was reminded of this during the practical session where our students actually work alongside with industry partners, for example, with IntegriCulture, just recently with Yuki, and also experienced firsthand on how to actually make in the making of the cultivated meat and seafood. So the passion, curiosity, and courage to step into this new field from these students reminds me of, why we educators are working, are doing this, right? Creating the opportunities for the next generation to lead. So in 2021, the Future Food Domains at our School of Applied Science, TP, was established. Our vision was clear to be the anchor for future food education, innovation, and also the leadership in Singapore to start with. So the future food here, as you can see, does span across cultivated foods as well as other alternative protein as well. Okay, next slide. So our just in general to introduce a little bit more, our approach rests on these four different commitments with the innovation on impact. So we collaborate actively with industry partners. That means it's through grants, applied research, consultation projects to really co-develop solutions or generate intellectual property and create real-world outcomes. And of course, at the very core, training for our future, we do prepare students for industry by going beyond textbook, bringing them in hands-on workshop, industry-led lectures, any authentic project work that can mirror the challenges they will face as they progress towards their career. And of course, partnerships that really matter, working closely with our stakeholders, to create collaborations that are genuinely valuable through the shared facilities. Sometimes we send students not just on our own institute, but we go to their facility to look at their lab, work in there, the mentorship from the industry experts, and also co-develop different type of pilot projects. Outreach, we believe society must be part of this journey. So that's why we also recently launched the APEC Society for Cellular Agriculture Student Chapter to really empower students to take on leadership role, create events with industry, and also drive cross-border initiative across the APEC region. So really, for our future food domain, it's not just a research unit, but we want to really create a living bridge between the classrooms, the industry companies, as well as the whole communities. Next slide, please. So, for example, when it comes to curriculum, as we know, cultivated food by nature are multidisciplinary, right? So, in our diploma in food nutrition and culinary science, for example, we launched the year 3 electives just last year in collaboration with GFI APAC. So together, what we do is we have the GFI APAC to help us to go through a co-design the learning objectives so that we can give the year 3 students a more comprehensive view of the alternative protein from not just plant-based innovation, but also cultivated meat and seafood. And also similarly, we implement this beyond that to, for example, our vet tech students, whom you might see, not so related, but then we introduce like cellular aquaculture, learning outcomes into what they have been traditionally learned about aquaculture, so that they can also gain the exposure of how this field is actually evolving, and also the sustainability part, right, in aquaculture. Next slide, please. So training, it's very important, right? Equally important. So we don't want the student to just, yes, they can understand, they're very good at absorbing knowledge about cell culture in textbook, but we want them to experience firsthand how to expand cells, what are bioreactors, how to run bioreactors, how is this different from pharmaceutical standards, what are 3D bioprinting. So for us, this can take in different many forms. For example, hosting conferences with industry-led workshop on a large-scale bioreactor, for example, which is you see on the right picture, or just giving live demonstration of, for example, 3D bioprinting from, we have international visiting students from Japan on the left side, or in this case, running practical classes where students can actually gain hands-on experience with accessible lab toolkits, like what have been introduced by Yuki, right? Toolkits from IntegriCulture, where it's been shared widely that how we can then use that and implement it into our teaching practical module. So, and then afterwards, the students will be able to use them and then come out with a final year projects to run the real experiment. So by the time our graduates enter the workforce, they will not start from zero, right? They were already halfway there on the learning curve. Yeah, so that's my a brief introduction for everyone.
Thank you so much, James. And now we have the opportunity to just kind of turn this into a more open discussion. So I will be asking a number of my questions to dig into more of this partnership and how it was built from the ground up. But I really don't need the audience to wait to ask their questions for a separate section. I plan to be integrating your questions throughout this conversation. So if you have any, again, please put that in the Q&A box. We will probably miss it if you put it in the chat. But of course, continue the conversations amongst yourselves in the chat. Now, the first thing that I would love to start with, just to make sure that we are all kind of talking about the same thing, is if you could please walk us through really what the structure of this workshop that you collaborated together with really was. How many days it took over. If there were different modules throughout, any sort of combination of classroom and laboratory activities to just kind of give us the scope of what this project really looked like in the real world. James, if you would like to start with that.
The structure of this workshop was, I guess I can start with how we organize this workshop, I suppose, where we approach IntegriCulture, and then we have to start planning on how we can run this workshop. So before we even talk to IntegriCulture internally in TP, we have to think about how we're going to run this workshop. For example, how many team members that we have, who is going to run, for example, the presentation system, who are the scientists here, who's going to prep for the work, and for different stations and recruiting students. All of this was to prep beforehand, which is actually one of the friction that we are looking at on how to actually make this workshop run smoothly. So it's actually a one-day workshop where we get the APEC SCA to actually also, which is another organization, APEC Society for Cellular Agriculture, to also come on board together with IntegriCulture, and then they will share about what their respective this workshop is all about. And then TP come in as well to introduce, sort of give introduction. And then afterwards, then we will have follow up with the practical workshop where students will go to like different stations to look at what to do with the cell culturing, which is demonstration as well from Yuki, for example. And then, yeah, just rotate around and then experience actually with like pipetting and all this stuff to really gain the first-hand experience on what it's all about in this cultivated food space. And I still remember during the presentation where Yuki shared very, very interesting presentation where he incorporated anime into this presentation, and the students got really, really excited. I was shocked myself, and I thought that was really, really creative and smart to really engage the students. And instantly you can see like students were like, wow, this is so interesting. And then they are even more interested to find out about, especially there's this one or two students who were really interested, like, oh, asking a lot of questions. If Yuki, you still remember, there's this one guy keep asking you a lot of questions. And then, so I was really surprised with the positive sort of interaction from the students. And then, yeah, so yeah, the structure.
Yeah, thank you for walking through that. And I will also endorse, I don't know if this was the same artwork that was used in the Shojin Meat project, but for those of you who have not looked through that website and their PowerPoint presentations, the artwork and how they integrate anime into cellular agriculture really is phenomenal. And I would strongly recommend spending a couple hours in it. Yuki, is there anything you would like to add about the structure of the workshop before we move on?
Yeah, so from our side, there was actually a logistical challenge in actually pulling out the workshop, and obviously one of the things that when on the planning phase, one of the first thing that came to an issue is that probably as you all know, cell culture takes time, like a week to 2 weeks to actually see the cells dividing. So, but at the same time, we had some practical difficulty of of basically taking up laboratory space for that long. So, to be honest, we had to do a lot of like simulation procedure rather than doing the actual procedure. So, um, and at the same time, because the of this whole workshop is not to actually culture cells, but to learn about the industrial or industry relevant food grade bioprocess for cellular agriculture. So compared to conventional cell culture practicals class, the goal was entirely different, which actually meant maybe we don't actually have to like culture cells in for complete real, which obviously has which I think is a bit maybe controversial, especially from academic point of view. But from an education point of view, since our goal is to teach the industry process, we took more effort in drawing the line of relevance between what students do at the teaching bench, um, and the relevance to the actual industrial process. So we included a lot of the actual industry process pictures in the presentation, and showed that a lot while the students do the laboratory version of that using the starter kit. But retrospectively, obviously, rather than showing on the slide, showing the real thing is probably better. So then we thought, well, next time we could do this in the actual production site, which may be of a bit of a challenge if we are to actually culture cells on like laboratory bench, but probably students learn about the process better that way.
I'm very glad that you highlighted that.
Mm,
Yeah, as I had mentioned, I've been an educator myself, and I think it's really easy to think that a workshop, a laboratory series,
mm,
like truly going through the entire culturing process for cellular
mm,
agriculture is just out of reach because maybe you just don't have a week, a month in your
mm,
syllabus in order to dedicate that. But focusing on the true learning objectives can make a lot of things much more approachable. As you had
yeah,
said, the true learning objectives about understanding and having hands-on experience with the production process does not
mm,
require incubation times because you can set up the
mm,
stages at different time points. It kind of reminds me of cooking and recipe shows where they put in one dish into the oven and they take prepped one out immediately, so there is no waiting time. Thank you for
mm.
highlighting that.
Yeah,
Um,
at the same time, we also figured out that because these things like starter kit is like so easy to carry around that we can actually do it on like factory floor rather than even in like teaching laboratory.
Yeah, and I think embracing that flexibility is something
Mm,
that is happening more across academia, but always definitely bears a reminder.
mm,
Now, you had already kind of talked about this, so I'd love to talk about it a little more expansively about any sort of points of friction that you met along the way. You had talked about the logistical challenges of the time course. James, you had already mentioned about the number of people that needed to get involved. So
mm.
I'm curious about any points of friction, possibly about approvals in the university, or just who you needed to get to say yes that was a bit challenging and what you did in order to get that yes.
So for my side, okay, I think timing was actually a very important factor that we consider, because during that week, it happens to be the flex week, what we call the flex week, which is where students, they don't have their regular classes. Sometimes their timetable is packed up, right? And then so instead, our institute, we dedicate this particular week in the academic calendar for them to take part in enrichment activities, where no classes, so they can just go and whatever take a CCA, or this is where all the staff will organize all these enrichment activities. So it's really a big help where because students then they're able to come in with open minds without the stress of assignments or exams, and they're ready to actually immerse themselves into this sort of thing. Um, then there is also the challenge where we want to make sure that, okay, do we always want to think about, will the students sign up? Will they ask questions? Will they see value in this? You know, then we have to sort of, whenever we pitch this to the different group of students to say, hey, join this event. So they really also need, especially at their level of education, right? Or at the age of between 70 to 21, they need to see the relevance. Okay, why am I doing this? Is it relevant to the food security goals? Is it related to my curriculum? And we need to show them how this interdisciplinary the learning is, right? Because we always emphasize, the skills that you learn from this practical session, for example, is really transferable. You may be learning cell culture, you may be learning this, but eventually, even if you're not in this discipline in near future, you can still apply this sort of skill. So when the students are able to relate all of these different concepts, they are more convinced to actually be more involved in this. And we actually see that come to fruition. So I thought that was really good. And then in terms of the approval, well, actually, my reporting officer is part of this, so that's great. She's very supportive, which is our future food domain chair. And then, of course, there's another higher level ups, which then goes up to our deputy director in the industrial partnership, and also our director, which they also needs to be on the same page as well with us, that all these, eventually there's it creates, I think most importantly for them, from what I see, at least with our current director, is that they want to see there's creating positive impact to the students firsthand. That's why they also really, really encourage, like, industry comes in, provide all this exposure to our students, and it really just align with our organization and also our research domain goals. So for them, that is the major concern, and we totally fulfill that. So we don't really have much issue in terms of the regulatory in terms of the approval on that. Yeah.
Yeah, it does help when your supervisor is on board as well. And I have a follow-up question based on the structure of that Flex Week, as you had said. But first, I want to pass it back to Yuki. Obviously, as the CEO, there's not many approvals that you would need to get. But on a related note, I would love to know just what you see as the value proposition for your company. Obviously, as you had said from the very beginning, given your goal of democratizing cellular agriculture just kind of fits with your mission, but you are also a company. So I'm curious where that business-minded value proposition lies with these sorts of partnerships.
Yeah. So basically, it relates to expanding the user base. So I think it's like not limited to this industry, but it's found all across. So it's actually as simple as that. And also on the more practical side, as it's already actually happening in Japan, but we supply our food grade everything to all sorts of researchers, including university researchers, and obviously they write publications. And if you look at the materials and methods section, yeah, there are our products, and the regulators and relevant people, like maybe people in FAO or maybe those in Codex Alimentarius, see those papers. Yeah, so that actually perfectly aligns with our business purpose.
I think that is an excellent point. And
Mm,
yeah, I mean, it's very straightforward, but I think a great reminder, especially to the
mm,
industry folks on the call here and watching the recording, that this really can be beyond just that beneficial partnership and giving back to the
mm,
community. So, James, back to you, talking about the Flex Week. As that being a specific example, the universities that I attended did not have anything like that. So I'm curious if you have any advice for those who are within universities that don't have that sort of flexibility built into their schedule and how they might be able to advocate for something that might need a little bit of that flexibility.
Mm. So, I mean, that's a very good, valid question, right? Because for us, of course, it's a benefit to have the flex rate, but most of the time we don't have that. It's not always we have that flex rate. And then everything of the programs throughout the year, we will cram into the flex weeks. So we also have to deal with the challenges where how are we going to find a day where, we have to fit into a student schedule. So I think this is something that is definitely ongoing and every educator is experiencing. We just have to find the time, and perhaps because once you are quite familiar with how how every semester in your university goes, you should be able to find pockets of different times to actually organize such events, even if it meant to be a certain session where the attendance might not be as high as in the in as compared to other periods of time. So maybe that works as well. And maybe you can tap onto other sort of advantage. For example, if this timing is not the greatest, but then it's okay, maybe we can pull other collaborators to come in so that it's more appealing to the students, to the audience, to whoever is going to be the audience of that particular workshop, right? For example, collaborating with GFI, for example, we must have industry to come and give a special talk about this. So all these special appealings are very important, I suppose, to ensure that if you were to fit this workshop into a very not so good timing in a week, then I guess I mean that should work as well. But really, as long as we start from something small, we start somewhere, and then eventually the crowd will build over time. That's what I believe.
Yeah, thank you. And that actually makes me think about some of the conversations I've had with educators across our ecosystem. And I've seen this a lot where it's easy to think of reasons why a project like this, a workshop like this, just won't work because it hasn't been done at a university, because there's a historical challenge with getting in new laboratory equipment, whatever that might be. And so the concerns about all the things that go wrong prevent these things from getting off the ground in the first place. And so for both of you, I would love to hear, a couple of examples of what just was substantially easier in making this collaboration happen than you might have expected in the first place. Yuki, would you like to start?
So the question was basically what could have been easier, or maybe the other way around.
What was actually easier than you were expecting? What did you expect to be
Yeah,
more
so
challenging and it was easy?
well, I think it's very. I have to be very thankful for James on that and Temasek Polytechnic on that. But uh, we've actually pitched this idea to some educational institutions in Japan before, but the administrative things hasn't been done before. The teachers at the classroom don't know how to run classrooms like that. Well, those kind of things hasn't been done before. Administratively, where would it fit? That kind of things prevented that from happening. But that was not at all the case with Temasek Polytechnic. That because people there were much more for forward-looking. Yeah. Another potential problem we initially thought was that because there's actually very little educational material on how to do cell culture by HACCP or ISO 22000. Well, I personally haven't seen any textbook that describes that, especially on the practical side. So we basically had to make from scratch. But that was actually it's commonly said that it's easier said than done. But in this case, it was actually like done easier than said. So we've actually done that, and it's actually not that like of an issue if we actually do it. So yeah, actually trying may realize that it's not actually that as difficult as it looks.
Yeah. Well, and I'm glad you talked about like just calling out James for the fantastic collaborator that he is. And for everyone on this call, I do want to highlight a large part of what we do at GFI. And you may have experienced this in collaborations you have already participated in, but very often the institution and the resources, the infrastructure that that institution has, whether we're talking about academia or the industry side, doesn't matter nearly as much as just a person. And sometimes two people, it's the faculty member and the administrator, or the chief scientist and someone else in the C-suite. But often it is just that willing relationship of someone who is open to putting in the work because they see in the value that matters so much more than the specific program or the specific institution, which is a large part of why we do things like this webinar. So again, please take the time to meet each other in the chat and the other fora that we have at GFI, like our GF Ideas community, because that is the sort of thing that can really get these collaborations off the ground. James, now I will pass it over to you to highlight anything that you found surprisingly easy in this process.
Surprisingly easy. I would say during the workshop, student recruitment in particular, I find it quite unexpected in a sense that normally when this kind of workshop, when we start to advertise and all these things, you would see very slow signups, right, from students, and that makes us worry, which is one of the challenge that I mentioned just now. But eventually, even if it's meant to be in the flex suite, because there's so many things that's going on. So so eventually we do get a good number of signups. And also we thought during the session we had to prompt a lot to the students, like, hey, do you guys have any questions? Do you guys have this? So that it's not so awkward, when it comes to between, yeah. So we really also want to make sure that the students are able to learn as well. So eventually, wow, the students, it was a breeze. Like students were really curious. I suppose, of course, coming from the presentation from Yuki as well, that was really interesting. That was really immersive as well. That really makes the whole workshop really interactive. That really got even the very shy and quiet students. You always had that few students who were just like blank face and then like very shy. They want to say something but they don't dare to say anything. So with this kind of workshop that was being carried out by from IntegriCulture, really bring up to another level where I do see students are able, most of them are able to sort of volunteer. Hey, I'm going to try this, and eventually really benefited. You can tell from their face that and their feedback that they are actually really enjoying this this workshop. So I thought that was something not entirely unexpected, but usually we will hold back like, oh, wow, this is the outcome. That's great. That sort of thing. Yeah.
That is fantastic to hear. Yeah, anytime you can get that almost universal engagement is truly a win for what we're all trying to do here. On that note, I would love to know if there were any patterns of feedback that you had received, especially James from the perspective of your students and Yuki from the perspective of either Temasek Polytechnic specifically or other universities that you have partnered with, and if that has informed what your future projects are at all. James, since you were just talking about the student
Mm.
involvement, I'll start with you and then pass it to Yuki.
Yeah. So from my side, the students, the demographic profile of the students are not just the food students. They were actually from a diverse background. So we do have medical biotech students, for example. So they are finally able to see, their skills. Oh, biotech can also be involved in the food industry, right? And we also have students from engineering, for example, chemical engineering, which might not be, directly involved in this disciplines, do see that they open their eyes on how broad sustainability is. So this is how food sustainability is all about. And student was saying, first time feeling like they actually can get first-hand experience to be part of this, what cultivated meat industry is all about. Because they were being told a lot from our student chapter about what this industry is about. And there are also people who was students who are saying how they're able to like, finally connect to what they have learned in theory to lab practice. So it helps them to click in the way they never had before. And so this kind of yeah, confidence and is quite powerful in a sense, because it will make the students want to come back for more. They will look out for the next event. And then importantly, the ripple effect is that, word spreads. These kids, they will start to tell their peers, right? Oh, wow, I attended this workshop. It was so nice, da, da, da. So they'll spread the excitement. So yeah, so this industry part, the passion from the industry as well, inspire them to have a closer look at on what also entrepreneurship is also all about, which is a very a lasting impression for them, because a lot of them are also into entrepreneurship, regardless what discipline they are in. So I thought that is a real win-win situation. Yeah.
That's fantastic. Yuki, feedback that you have received.
Yeah, so that will be from as an industry, the feedback will be very, very like on the ground level stuff. And one of the most common thing is when are the materials gonna arrive? So entire logistics stuff. So actually, if we had to do this kind of class in other places, university help on logistics is actually the most helpful by like sending things in like 2 months in advance to just in case the logistics get some delays, or maybe and some of the materials may require refrigeration or freezing temperature, but at the same time it can also be locally sourced. So we can it's actually help it actually will be better if we can like talk early and like engage in conversations like, well, out of the starter kit, this you get it on your side, that we can bring it on the day, and kind of arrangements. So, and another thing is like, so how much is that? Is it? So that's another quite real stuff. But what we can say is that traditionally, like cellular agriculture has been associated with actually setting up a bioreactor, which even in the smallest scale, like costing 50,000 US dollar per unit or kind of thing. But on our side, on the other hand, because we originally came from DIY cell cultured meat projects, so like ultra low capex is our thoughts behind the technology. So I think that that sort of should be helping from the that should be also be helpful from like educator or academia standpoint.
Yeah. I think that actually is a great way to transition into some of the more
Mm,
concrete questions that we have
mm,
gotten from our audience. So, as a reminder, our wonderful audience, please continue asking
mm,
your questions. One, Yuki, that you had actually responded to in text, I would love to kind of expand a little bit
mm.
on as well. So, the
Yeah,
question was about how you managed to keep the sterility of the bioprocess. And you had mentioned that your bioreactor is autoclavable and
yeah.
multi-use. Yeah, so you're showing it right there. So it's oxygen permeable rubber material,
Mm.
um, clean bench, all of that. Anything you want to add to it? Because I have a follow-up question to that as well.
Well, I think I've answered by text on that. So basically, a standard laboratory procedure for as of like conventional cell culture.
And my follow-up question to that is basically how user-friendly is it? Because I know from my undergraduate and frankly graduate
Mm,
training, keeping things sterile is a challenge, and that's one of the hardest lessons learned of students coming
mm.
up. So in the hands of non-experts and students, do you have enough data to know just kind of what the success rate of maintaining sterility of your system is throughout the process?
Yeah. So obviously the industrial process we actually employ using these things and the process we employed for or in classroom for educational purpose are not exactly the same. Because a lot of the like things like checklist yeah, like checklists and all those things are not implemented in classroom. So in industrial process, we can actually give the number. It's actually more than 97% success rate, and just be on the conservative side. Yeah. So I don't think we had any cases of contamination over the past half year or so. Yeah, but on the sort of the DIY procedure, the success rate has been, I would say, even in like just not even in school class, but in like people's homes, that was about 70% or so. So not the best, but still manageable. And obviously, every little efforts to make it sterile helps.
Yeah. And not to denigrate any of my former classmates, but I mean, 70% in our laboratory environment was a reach goal for us at times. So
Mm,
I think that does speak to the robustness of the system that you have created.
mm,
I have one other question specifically about your kit and then kind of zooming out for GFI and the ecosystem more broadly, asking about whether the starter kits, all of the inputs going into it, are vegan, or whether there are animal product components as part of the media
mm.
or others.
Well, some of the components, like, although this is not shipped internationally, there's this FBS replacement, which is based on egg yolk. It's obviously food grade. It's very, very cheap. But obviously, it's an obvious animal component. So, so that's option one. And option two is cell cultured serum, which is the animal component free, but a bit more expensive. So we have like some options, but in general, I would say it was like being vegan, being halal, being kosher, and all those like things are a bit of a kind of a future projects on our side.
Yeah, and To what looks like the follow-up question from the same audience member,
Mm,
just about, frankly, the ethical dilemmas that many of us experience in this industry, everything from including fetal bovine serum into cellular
mm.
agriculture, media recipes, to collaborations with all players across the food system. That is an ongoing source of debate. GFI specifically is actively supporting research into what Yuki was talking about of that full animal-free serum, amongst many other topics. So, to that specific question, we do actually have resources and other guides of kind of where the research needs to go in order to fully remove animal products from cellular agriculture processes. And I would definitely encourage you to look into some of those deep dives, like our cell culture deep dive on our website. Um, some other questions that I will essentially summarize as, so how can we connect with you to collaborate, either for knowledge sharing or hands-on training? What would be the best way to start a potential partnership like that?
Yeah, I would say like just contact us is like the obvious entry point. So obviously, I think it can be done through like the GFI through this organized event, or it could be simply like visit our website at IntegriCulture Company, or it could even be Shojin Meat Project site, or perhaps like find me on LinkedIn. So I'm reading all messages. So yeah, that's the way you reach us.
Yeah, and I've definitely experienced this with Yuki because I did not know him before this webinar. And frankly, across the industry more broadly, everyone is really eager to help because they recognize that a rising tide truly does lift all boats. So please reach out. We will share everybody's email addresses. And another reminder, we will have a feedback form that also doubles as that additional question form. So any requests, any questions that you have, get that in by this Friday, October 10th, and we will be sure to pass that on. One broader question about just how to promote the uptake of the teaching of cellular agriculture more broadly, beyond the people who are already heavily invested in it as part of their research portfolio. Coming from the future of foods domain, James, I think you might be really well suited to talk about how to get more professors involved if that isn't their specific area of research.
I think it's very important, first of all, is that professor has to start networking first, which is really to get, as in, because I think it's important to connect with like the industry to see what they're doing and then eventually how they need to have that passion and have that drive to see how they can actually adapt that to their curriculum to fulfill what they need to do as a for example lecturer or a professor to into their curriculum. So whether you're in universities or you're in polytechnic, as long as you're an educator, there's some forms of ways that you need to have certain curriculum design, which means you need to implement practical sessions into your curriculum for sure. Certain hours they are allocated to it, which means this is the opportunity where you ask yourself, how am I going to make this practical even more um, uh, practical, even more, for example, how can the students be more firsthand, be more, what's the word, up to date to the standards of the industry. So this is where once you have that set of questions in mind, then you will start to go out and have a look at, oh, what are the other the industries are actually doing, and then we will invite them to as a guest speaker, maybe for the practical session for the first hour, and then see what they're doing. If it's actually aligned with the learning objectives that you have for your curriculum, then that's perfect. Then you can actually have a practical session that not just repeating what you have been doing for the past few semesters, but you are actually doing something that meets the industry standards, and you have the industry people, speakers to come over to pick students' interest as well. So it's like a win-win between the students, you as yourself as an educator, as well as the industry. So I think this is where, between the IntegriCulture and TP, where it comes in, that really works. Yeah.
Yeah, I think you outlined really that goal of a virtual cycle very well. Industry involvement makes the case for university administrators and anyone else that it is really getting them career and industry ready. So I would love to start kind of pulling us back out and zooming out a little bit to wrap up our conversation, really about what sort of future goals that you have, what sort of exciting projects you have been working on, especially in light of the success of this kind of workshop. So first, I'll go to Yuki, and I'm curious any projects you want to talk about, but also beyond repeating what you did, I'm curious if
Mm.
your primary focus would be on like expanding the number of universities you're partnering with or expanding the depth of the collaboration within
Mm.
those existing universities, possibly
Mm.
with more visits, additional course
Mm.
integration. What does that look like for you in IntegriCulture?
Yeah, so it will be like as I mentioned, it actually goes in on like three dimensions basically. It's basically breadth and depth spread over timeline. So obviously for the immediate future, we would like to replicate this to other institutions by offering a starter kit, and also at the same time improving on um, base. Well, starting with a starter kit like ultra low capex cellular agriculture working system. Um, and as a midterm goal, we would basically we would like to provide different institutions the capability to not just teach but to research and develop their own IP based on our system. So we basically end up building the whole ecosystem of democratized cellular agriculture. Yeah, that includes although it's not listed on the starter kit yet, that includes our the feeder bioreactor system to hardware to actually make cell cultured serum, or it could be like improved version of this squishy bioreactor. It could even be a continuous host kind of bioreactor. Who knows? The degree of engineering freedom is that high. So like those things popping from us or from popping from the everywhere for a more distributed ecosystem. So that's the long-term goal.
Yeah, and I think that's a fantastic call to action. I'll give you another shot at an additional call to action shortly. But again, anyone on this call, that means there are a lot of opportunities to bring this into your courses, your departments, that sort of thing. James, any other projects that you want to highlight? And that could be similar workshops in the cellular agriculture field specifically, or just other ways that you are bringing in hands-on curricula and industry engagement opportunities that you really want to make happen for your students.
Maybe I can start off with what we have been doing at TP. So, for example, apart from what we call the final year project, so for us we call it the major project. Usually, what we do is students when they are year one, so it's until year three. Year one, we will expose them with this little, this workshop here and there. And once we get their interest, then towards their third year, then they will take on the final year project that is related to what they have done. So we also have this what we call the differential experiential program in our poly, where it is an ongoing 3 years project where year one students will get involved in the same project, for example, doing this cultivated food in cell culturing or media formulation. Then in year three, they will do something more advanced, and then it will then contribute towards their final year project, where of course it's graded, and that sort of things. And eventually, what that also means is that they are basically 3 years being exposed or experienced. 3 years of experience already in this particular field. So we have that as part of our sort of a project that we have in TP. And of course, internship, for example, how we have, it got us thinking how we can actually get students to, before they start an internship, where sometimes it might not be, for example, a food and culinary science students, they might not totally exposed on the biotech side. How can we get them ready before when they chose this elective for the future food electives. Then when they go to the internship related to cultivated meat company, for example, they already have a head start. So that's where we also have projects like mentee ship program, where we will engage industry experts, and then we expose the students and then get them attached to these different industry leaders, and then we have them do competitions. We recently just had one organized with a GFI IPAC as well, with SG Innovate, and then some of the mentees actually then follow up with the mentor with the same industry leader, and then follow up with their internship. So they got a much longer internship in a sense. So for the students, they really like that. And for the industry, they also prefer it that way because it's longer and they can contribute more as opposed to, somebody who's just start from scratch. Yeah.
Yeah, and where
So,
you're essentially spending at least half the time training that person and then they leave. Um,
right.
yeah, I think with what you highlighted about the true power of integrating similar projects and similar themes throughout make any given workshop or course that much more influential in the career development because it is in context of a larger whole. Thank you for highlighting that. And so finally, I do want to give both of you the opportunity to leave the audience with a call to action. And you can pick your audience segment if you want to steer this towards students, faculty, industry, or someone else. Anything that you really wish more people were doing, more people were taking action on. Yuki, would you like to start?
Yeah, well, I would say like nothing, I would say like very inspirational or like emotional. I would just say just get on board. Like, it's not as hard as it looks, is basically my message.
Mm.
I can definitely get behind that. Especially since IntegriCulture was founded in 2015, if you last tried to get something off the ground 10 years ago, even 5 years ago, it probably would have been a lot harder. But there are so many more partners in this space now that can contribute, and you don't have to do everything on your own.
Oh, well,
James, I'll give you the
even
final
back in
word.
2017, we had like some high school students growing like culturing cells at home. So yeah, fundamentally, it's actually not that hard.
And I will be perfectly honest, that was before I had ever heard about cultivated meat, and now I work at GFI. So if that's not a demonstration of the evolution of this field, I don't know what is. James, what would you like to leave us
Mm.
with?
I would say, it's really okay to start small and practical, make it accessible, and then don't. Sometimes there's a lot of things that workload and the sort of things that sometimes stop us from, working together. We still have to take that step, that just a baby step across, industry, other IHLs, and then really get the real experience to change the students' mindset and all this. So yeah,
Yeah, I mean
start small.
that really is what it's all about. I can think of no better way to round out our panel today. I have just left in the chat our link not just to our feedback form, but that additional Q&A section that you can add any other questions that come up. We will also be adding that to the YouTube description for those of you watching this recording after the fact. So all that remains for me to say is again, thank you to everyone who attended. Of course, many thanks to Yuki and James. Thank you to Renee and Arin for providing support on the back end. This is what we do at GFI, trying to help facilitate the entire ecosystem's growth. And specifically, what I am passionate about is empowering students and early career professionals to find a way in. So if you are interested, curious about anything, please reach out to me. This is my contact information, and I would love to get connected. We have many more communities across the GFI space for you to do so as well. So until we get connected in some other way, I will just say, have a wonderful rest of your day, everyone, and thank you so much for contributing to this space.